Excited you decided to join us. First of all, congratulations. You made it through another school year. One of the hardest things you can do is get through the year without any bumps or bruises, but you made it. Some people didn't make it. They quit, but you didn't. So I'm so proud of you. All right? Congratulations. Second, thank you for joining us. There could be so much things that you could be doing with your time. So many things that you could be doing outside of school. I know we are finally home, finally at a place for most of us of peace. So I'm excited that you're able to join us, all right? I'm not going to take too much of your time up, but I want to give you what God gave me. Now, listen, we're getting ready to go into a new series called Schools Out. And I know that sounds real pretty and real familiar, and it's a phrase that makes us really happy because thank God school is done for the semester. But fundamentally, people's favorite portion of the school year is the breaks. Spring break, thank God for that. Trips to Miami and flights, y'all know about that, right? And then fall break, even though it's a few days, and then Thanksgiving and winter break. Those are some of the people's most favorite parts of the year, right? The ability to relax and recharge and get things together, and going through the school year. After going through that, you've been fighting with everybody, family, friends, new friends you done made that it seemed like you done known forever, but it's really only been 3 months. That's what college does to you. You've been fighting with professors about grades. You've been fighting with your mental health about these assignments due and all this good kind of stuff and all the stresses that come with college, right? Fighting to keep friends and all that good kind of stuff. Breaks are so useful. I'm a very strong proponent of taking a break. If you know anything about me, I'm going to take a nap. And so it's very important that you get the break and the rest that you need, right? To reset and relax. Summer break is one of the most important times because it gives you enough time to recharge, to prepare to do it all over again for another 50 or so plus more days, right? The only issue that people really have, especially with summer break included, is that they have to go home. And it's not that home is a bad place, but sometimes home can be difficult. Home can be a hard place for most people. It can be complex. So we're going to talk about it. The place that you're trying to escape most of the time is school. As soon as the last final hits and you've cleaned out your residence hall and you've cleaned out your dorm, you cleaned out your apartment, and you get to go home, it feels great. And then the reality sets in that you're really back at home. This series is about the transition phase. Being back home, what it means to you, what it means mentally, and how much daunting that can be. Okay? So, with that being said, let's go to our text. I'm going to give you a preference for this, but I want you to go here, all right? I want you to go to Matthew chapter 13, all right? I want you to go to Matthew chapter 13, and we'll start at the 53rd verse, and we'll read to the 56th-ish verse, somewhere around there, all right? I want you to pull out your phones. We're going to the ESV. Thank you so much again for watching us. Pull out your iPhones, your iPads, your MacBook Pro, whatever. Share this experience. Send it across the globe. Send it to your mama, your auntie, your uncles, all of them. All right? It's a very important conversation for everybody. All right? So, starting at verse 53 in the ESV. While you're going there, I want to tell you more about what we're going to talk about. And it's important that I preface this because everybody doesn't face the same trials and tribulations when going home. So sometimes conversations and talks about certain things don't connect with certain people. Certain things don't click with certain people because they don't understand the mystery or why is it so bad? Does that make sense to you? Let's preface this by saying some people genuinely fear going home. Some people genuinely fear going back home. And it is not a knock on who they are or their personality, but some people actually fear going home. It is a place where it can be complex. It's the sense that the people and the things that are around you, the people that were once your friends, the people that once you looked up to and you hung out with and you acted a fool with, those people, that environment where you grew up sometimes does not seem the same. It can be daunting going through a change in your life of a place that you thought was for you, or you thought was supposed to be your place, and it doesn't feel like it used to feel. Some people genuinely do not want to go home. It's the view from families and from friends from school and life being replayed in your mind that you don't really understand why things have to be different. Because a lot of times what we like to do is replay the old memories of what used to be. We are very emphatic fans of nostalgia. That is why you watch SpongeBob still, because you're a friend of nostalgia. Now, granted, it is a good show. I don't blame you. But sometimes we are emphatic friends of nostalgia, the nostalgic feel that it feels coming home. What happens when the feeling goes away? What happens when your friends are not the same friends that they used to be, or your family members don't act like they used to act? Does that make sense? So some people genuinely hate it. They despise it. Some people don't want to go home. I want you to take under the notion what it's like to have the place that once comforted you, once relieved you of all your pain, once made you feel good, once was your place of peace, was your sanctuary, becomes the place that stresses you out. I want you to take under the notion that the places that you once called home could make you feel like a stranger. I want you to put that in your mind. Now let's go to Matthew chapter 13. In this story, in this part of the Bible, first of all, it is a synoptic gospel. So you can find this story in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But we'll take Matthew's approach today. Matthew chapter 13, we see Jesus go back home. That's exactly what we see. Matthew chapter 13 in the ESV, starting at the 53rd verse. 53rd verse. Lord help me. And when Jesus had finished these parables, and he went away from there, and coming into his hometown, type that in the comments, say hometown, he taught them in their synagogue. Because what happens when you leave a place that was once yours, and you no longer call it home, or it once was home and you have since transitioned, it is no longer yours. We'll get back there in a minute. Coming into his hometown, he taught them in their synagogue, so that they were astonished and said, "Where did this man get all of this wisdom and these mighty works? Is this not the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And are not his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? And not all of his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all of these things?" I want to talk to you for a minute, and it's going to be a conversation even though you're not responding. I want to talk to you like I'm evaluating you and we're having a conversation in Starbucks. And if we had to title this conversation, we would call it "Nothing is the Same." Nothing is the same. Nothing is the same. Nothing was the same. In order to understand what Jesus is doing here, we have to go back to understand what has happened before. Part of your biblical literacy and understanding the Bible is being able to read before and afterwards to get the meaning of a certain text. That is one of the rules in hermeneutics. And that the Bible does not, it is not separate stories put together, but is one conglomerate of stories that all lead to Jesus. All right. The ministry of Jesus contextually and naturally really only lasted 3 years. Now, learning in Bible school, that was one of the first things that I learned that really shook my mind, that Jesus did more in 3 years than they had did the entire time on the earth. Principle here, and I'll give you this one for free. It does not mean that you have to last a long time to accomplish a goal, but what it does mean is that you have to be effective. And so Jesus is freshly baptized by John the Baptist. You know the story. Gets a seal of approval. Jesus says, "This is my son. I love him so much." Yada yada yada. Doves fly. The sky peeks through, and there's the sun. Right? Is it not interesting to me? And I'll give you the first point here. Is it not interesting that Jesus had to go get baptized out of his city? Is it not interesting that Jesus decided, because it was not that there was no water available to him, or that there was no river close to Nazareth, but Jesus had to go out of his own city, out of his own area, to go be seen by people who couldn't see who he really was. I find it interesting that we go to college and it's almost as if we are not almost if, but we are around people who have no clue who we are. And we'll get back there in a minute, but that can affect how we communicate. All right. So Jesus had to be around people who had not been able to see who he was, did not know who he was, to really be seen. Could it be really that the people around you are so used to the 10-year-old you, that's why you don't feel comfortable at home anymore? I know. Could it be that the people, your mother, your father, your auntie, your uncles, great-grandma and grandma and all them still remember old little Tink Tink or Man that used to run around? They had to change their diapers. Could it be that they're so used to you when you were younger, they called you all types of names and nicknames, of course, non-defamatory, that they called you all types of nicknames and were comforted to you, and they still teach you the same way? Could it be that they're so used to your immaturity that they're not able to recognize the mature version of you? So people don't go home or don't like to be home because their parents make them feel like they haven't grown. Selah. There is debate among scholars whether or not Jesus visited this place once or twice, and we don't have to talk about it here because it's not that important. But that brings a very important point either way. There's no reason at all to be in a place, to be around people that do not receive the mature you. If they can't receive your maturity and your growth, you don't need to be around longer than you have to. Sometimes that don't mean I'm telling you to move out your house right away, or go find a new apartment, or go find new friends or new roommates and sign a whole year lease and now you got to stay over summer. That's not what I'm telling you, because sometimes the smarter choice is to be at home. But you don't have to be at home longer than you have to be. All right? The problem that many of us face in this time in our life is that we are literally standing in the middle of a balanced beam. We are literally standing on two odds and two different personality types and two different conglomerates and two different identities of who we are from the left and the right. We are in the middle of what we have done. We are in the middle of our past and in the middle of what is our not yet. And the problem that many of us face is that we're standing on this balanced beam and we have no clue who to identify with. It's an issue because what happens is home is where the pictures are. Home is where the memories are, the medals are. Home is where your old uniforms that you were supposed to turn in to the sporting events are. Home is where the degrees are. Home is where the baby pictures and the baby shoes and the diapers that you never used are. Home is where the storage is. It's where the old boxes of your old memories are. Home holds you to a certain identity. It holds you to a certain history. Home holds you to a certain personality. And then you get to college. You get to a place where things are different. Nobody knows you. Nobody really understands you. And unless you go to college around a bunch of people that grew up with you, there's still people bound to have no clue who you are. Home can be a hard place. It can be complex because home remembers. Home doesn't forget. Home was there with you when you got suspended, and home was there with you when you came past curfew, and home was there with you when you made the immature mistakes, and home was there with you when you were going through the identity crisis, and home was there with you when you got A's on your report card, and home was there with you when you were doing certain stuff, and home participated. Home was at the award ceremony and the banquets and the honors and the football games and the basketball games, and they participated with you and was at graduation. Home has the pictures. It holds you to a certain identity. And we come to college and we come to school and we move out and we are around people and that are a bunch of strangers, people who have no clue who you are. They don't know your background. They don't know where you come from. They don't know what you've done. They don't know what you've accomplished. All they know is what you tell them. I find it interesting that a lot of people come to college and they change their entire identity. I find it non-consequential, in fact, that people come around you and we tell them the exact identity that we want them to know. Could it be that you go home and who you are at home is not who you really were, so you were at home hiding this entire time? Could it be that when you come to college, you are so struck in the middle of this balance beam and managing this balancing act that you are one person at school and one person at home, and those two people are aliens to each other? It can be daunting because what you're in the middle of and on the preface of is an identity crisis. You're standing in the middle of one big whirlwind of people who have no clue who you are, and people who want to know who you are, and people who have an ideal who you are, but you have no clue who you are. Sometimes, and when you do have the idea, the people around you cannot accept it. And it could be because they hold you to a certain history. They hold you to a certain ideal base. They hold you to a certain understanding of who you are. That don't mean that's just family, because friends have the same idea of you too. I don't know if you've experienced this yet coming home, but sometimes your friends are like, "Ooh, you so different. Ooh, ever since you've been at the school and you've been doing this with your life and you've been growing up, you don't act the same. Ooh, I wish you would stop. I wish you would go back and wish things would be like they used to be." Now let's go to our text. I'm done with that part. Now let's go to our text. Is it not interesting that we don't take into account the humanity of Jesus? I find it interesting that a lot of times we discredit or disconnect or don't give the attention properly to the humanity of Jesus. It was Jesus who came down to us fully God and fully human. It was Jesus on the cross, on Golgotha's hill, who cried out, "God, will you forsaken me?" I don't believe that was the godly portion of Jesus, but rather the humanity. Because the God portion of Jesus came down to do his Father's will, and he knew that his Father's will was for him to die. So it was the humanity of Jesus that caused him to question why his Father forsaken him. That means that we don't take enough credit into the humane parts of Jesus. The mystery that we have to unlock into our lives is that Jesus not only was God, but he was also flesh. Meaning that Jesus was susceptible, even though he did not fall, was susceptible to the same behavioral patterns that we are. He was susceptible to the same sin. He was susceptible to the same aggregation and the same irritation of this fleshly life. He was not faulty, but he was susceptible to fall like we do. Susceptible to your anger issues and your anxiety and your depression. Was able to fall, even though he did not, was able to fall to the same things that cause us irritation, selfishness, jealousy, and envy. Those things, Jesus, the humane side of him, was able to go through just like you and I. I don't think we give Jesus enough credit for being human. Just as human as we are, Jesus was human. And I find it interesting here that one of the first places that Jesus has a human reaction. One of the first things that Jesus does, one of the first things that Jesus wants to do or decides to do after being inaugurated or being installed as the Messiah, being installed as a messenger and the preacher and the teacher of the gospel, the first thing that he decides to do is go home. When we graduate, we get a raise, we get a new job. Even though sometimes we can't go, we'll send a phone call. We want to go home. We want the celebration of the comfort that used to be there. And some parents do a very good job of making sure to celebrate us. Now, everybody don't get the same treatment at home, but some parents do a very good job of comforting and supporting their children. So one of the first things that we do is call home. We go home. We celebrate at home. We have the nice little dinner. We go to Cracker Barrel, or we go to Longhorn Steakhouse, or we go to Outback, and we celebrate. We do everything. Could it be that we are seeking the validation from the people that we considered our people? The validation, the love, the admiration that we dreamed of from the people that have always supported us or been there for us through our developmental stages and our developmental years. Could it be that we're seeking the same admiration, validation from those people? And one of the worst things for us to do, especially for those who never got love from a place, is to expect it from a place we never got it. One of the most dangerous things you can do is expect love from people that never gave it to you in the first place. And we get hurt because we expected something different when people have showed you who they are. Now, my mama always said, when somebody show you, she said, baby, when somebody show you who they are, you better believe them the first time. And the reason why you have to believe them the first time is because you expecting them to change, you expecting something to have a different result is insanity. Doing the same thing the same way every time expecting a different result is insanity. And so now we don't know much about the young life of Jesus. We don't know. The Bible doesn't teach us too much in our canonized scriptures. It doesn't tell us much about the infancy stages of Jesus or who he was at a younger age. Matter of fact, the Bible doesn't tell us anything at all other than we get all the way up to he was 12 and then it drops off for the next few years. But I can only imagine what it must like to be living around a bunch of people that have no clue you were sent to save them. Could it be that we're overplaying our parts in people's lives? Now, don't tighten up on me here, because I want you to understand that sometimes we overplay our parts, overplay our roles in people's lives because we think that we can take everybody with us. It is not worth, and you can write this down. I want you to type it in the comments. It's not worth risking your life to help save someone at the risk of your own self. If people don't want you to help them, if people don't want you to support them, then don't do it. Don't be the one to try to save everybody. There's a phrase for that. And we think that it only applies to relationships, but it applies to your friendships. It applies to how you view people and how you see things. It applies to how you see life. It applies to what you want to do with your life. There is a phrase for it, and it not only does not just apply to relationship, but it applies to the people around you. Stop overplaying your part. If they don't want to be around you, if they don't want to take you for who you really are or the mature version of you, stop overplaying your part. Simple. And it sounds simple in words, but it's harder in practice, because how do you disconnect from your childhood friends? How do you disconnect from your cousins and your aunties and your uncles that grew up with you and you used to cut up with and used to have all these fun times with, and you used to grow up and enjoy yourselves and have all the fun moments? How do you disconnect from that? Now, that don't mean cut them off. Please don't, because you don't never want to cut off family when it's not appropriate. That don't mean cut everybody off, but what that does mean is that you have to have the proper emotional support, the proper emotional balance in your relationship. Some of us have a healthy imbalance in our relationship and wonder why our friendships don't work out. Sometimes we expect too much from people, or we take people extremely too fast, or we don't support people quick enough, or we don't support people how they need to be supported, and we overplay our part to sometimes our own detriment. Now let's get to our text. Verse 55, we see a crowd of people that knew Jesus. They weren't unfamiliar with Jesus. Matter of fact, these are the same people that seen Jesus in elementary school. They was in kindergarten together. They watched him grow up, spelling bees and honor rolls and certificates and dances in elementary school. The same people that did group projects and presentations went to the science fair with Jesus. The same people that went to prom and homecoming with Jesus. The same people he talked to and cut up with in the hallways, was in group chats and started Snapchat streaks and all this other stuff, posted on stories and different things. The same people that were at his graduation party. The same people that gave him gifts for his birthday. The same people that were excited when he finally hit 18 and got his license. The same people that were happy for Jesus when he left and decided to go grow up and become everything that he wanted to become. The same people that Jesus called friends and family. The same community around that embraced him and grew up with him and knew that he was educated, because these are the same people that he debated with that were twice his senior. The same people that had so much to say when he came back. I find it not interesting that the first thing that they did when they couldn't understand him, or the first people that are quick to turn on you, are the same people that supported you. I find it interesting that the same people that have so much to say are the same ones that were singing your praises before you left. I find it interesting that the same people that want to be your best friend, the same people that decided that you were their friend, or the same people that wanted to understand you or claimed that they knew you, are the same people, most of the times, the first people that turn their back on you. It is people's preconceived notions about who you are and who they think you are that makes it harder for them to accept who you really are. I'll back that up and say it again. It is people's preconceived notions about who you are that make it harder for them to accept who you really are. The Bible says that many ask themselves a question and they discussed among them, because sometimes your name pops up in group chats and rumors. Sometimes your name pops up on Snapchat stories and T pages because they ask themselves a question: is this not the carpenter's son? Is his mother not married? Don't we know his sisters? Ain't his brothers so-and-so? And because remember, didn't we go with his sisters to the club last week? And didn't we hang out with his brothers the other day? Matter of fact, don't his little brother go to the elementary school? Is this not the same guy that we knew? We know him. We know who he is. We know what he does. We know him. We grew up with him. I don't know why he acting brand new. I don't know why he think he can go off to that little expensive private college. I don't know why he think he can go off to that little expensive private college. Because God knows tuition is high, praise God. Well, I don't know why he can go off to that expensive private college and think that he can be somebody different. These are the same people that spent over 2 decades with Jesus. The same people that not once could see that Jesus was more than a man. Because we know this, because the first thing that they do when they did not understand Jesus is reduce him back to the identity that they knew. The first thing that they do, that they didn't even try to mature or adapt to who they thought Jesus was, but the first thing that they do is reduce him back to his former personality. I think it's funny how people who claim to see you and understand you and be your bestie and love you forever, and that's my girl, I don't go nowhere without him, or I don't go nowhere without her, and that's my guy, we hang out all the time, are the first people that don't understand you, or the first people that when they don't understand you, reduce you down to where they saw you last. This is why home can be difficult. Because sometimes your friends and your family don't understand you. Sometimes your friends and your family and your people don't get you. Sometimes they don't really understand the practical personalities of who you are, your new maturity. So what they do when they don't understand, because what people fear the most is change. We're going to get back there in a minute. What people fear most is change. What they do when they don't understand you is reduce you back to something that they can understand. And Jesus goes back home to people that he grew up with, to people that sang his praises, that he was doing all types of stuff with. And they reduce him back to just merely the carpenter's son. When people don't understand you anymore, and instead of trying to understand you, it's human nature to reduce you back to something that I do understand. And most of the time, prepare yourself, breathe in, exhale. Most of the time, it comes from a parent. I know, I'm sorry. Most of the time, it comes from a parent. Now, some parents do a really good job of understanding your maturity. Most of the time, they do a really good job of trying to make you be emotionally available to you. But sometimes it comes from a parent. And most of the time, it's not because they don't love you, or it's not because that they don't want to be around you or see who you are or be in your mind. But sometimes they can't compute that their baby has grown up. So what do? Put my blue light glasses back on. What do? They come home, right? You come home and you're excited to be home, and life is real good because you're finally done with the stresses of professors and people you've been around. They come home and immediately they put you right back on the same duties. You're back on the same chores. You're back on the same cleaning schedule. You're back on the same picking your brothers and little sisters up from school. You're back on cooking and cleaning, and they treat you like they did when you were in high school. Now, that don't mean that you should not be a service around your house, because it is your reasonable service. God be the glory. But what that does mentally is that puts you back into a state and a position that you feel like you're taking steps back when you come home. Because sometimes we don't like going home because it feels like a step back and not a step up. We have made all of this maturity and all of this growth in school, and we've done all these great things, and we joined clubs and become presidents and won elections and made friends. Went to sporting events and won awards. We've done all types of great stuff. And what this does is it starts to cause and effect. Because when you come back home and you realize that things around you are back in your mind to where they were, you start to look around and you realize that things are not really how they used to be. Because you start to look around, and even though you have taken a step back and you have been set back, you start to realize how much your little siblings has grown up, and Tink Tink is not as small as she used to be anymore, and Man is not running around in diapers like he used to be. Matter of fact, he's walking now and talking now, and he don't need no bottle now. He want real meat, and how much things have changed at home, and the living room has been rearranged, and your clothes are not in the same spot, and the laundry room looks different, and there's a new smell in the house, and new people people are coming over and there's a new TV and things are around, and your friends that you thought were your friends are not really your friends no more. They don't want to hang out. They got new friends now because they decided to stay home and go to college, and they're doing different things now, and they're involved in new types of things, or their personality has changed. They've decided that they wanted to grow up and they wanted to mature because they didn't want to be the same person that they were in high school anymore, and they didn't want to have to peak in high school. They decided that they wanted to change so it doesn't feel like it used to feel anymore. How much of home is not the home you remember? And then it starts to feel like nothing is the same. Because our deepest fear, thank you, Coach Carter, is not that we're inadequate but powerful beyond measure. No. Our deepest fear is change. Our deepest fear is that things are not going to be like they used to be. The deepest fear is that we won't be able to recognize who we are. Our deepest fear is change. And on top of that, our deepest fear is rejection. Our deepest fear is that the rejection from other people to our change is going to happen. And the root, here we go, because now we're going to deal with it now, and I'm almost done. I promise you I'm not going to keep you too much longer. The root of why nothing really feels the same and why this makes us sad and why going home is a dread is because the root of it is rejection. I know. Take a deep breath. Let it out. The root of it is rejection. Rejection of who you are now. Rejection of your maturity. Rejection of change. Rejection of who you want to be. Rejection of what you have grown to be. Rejection of what you want to do. And that is the reason why it hurts so bad. Because it's rejection. And not only is it rejection, but it's rejection from the people that you never expected to rejected you. I wonder how many people grew up with parents that supported them and they came home and felt like things were totally different and their parents didn't love them anymore. I wonder how many people come home and don't like their parents anymore, or don't feel comfortable expressing themselves to their parents anymore and don't have a clue why is it to. Why is it? Or what's the reason why they don't feel drawn or feel emotionally attached to their parents anymore? I'm going to tell you. It's because at the deep root of it all, you feel rejected. You feel rejected. Rejected by your friends that don't see you the same way anymore. And it is our fear of change. It's our fear of change that feeds into our fear of rejection. Because a lot of times, because you fear change so much, you end up rejecting yourself. Just because coming home seems like a setback, I'm done with that. I'm sorry. You can untighten yourself. You can loosen. You can breathe. I'm done with that. Just because when you come home it seems like a setback doesn't mean that what you're doing is not worth it. The Bible declares that as soon as a child is delivered, the mother, she does not remember the anguish anymore. So if you're at home and you're loving your break and things just are the same and they're not, and things haven't changed, I'm not talking to you, because this one is for a very select group of people that don't like going home. Because I don't like the change that's at home. I don't like what's going on at home. I don't want to be here really. I know I have to come back because I have no other place to go. So I keep myself occupied with work, and I keep myself occupied with activities and things I want to do, and going out and seeing things and doing different things because I don't want to be at home. Because home makes me depressed, and home makes me have anxiety, and home makes me feel like this is not the place that I need to be. This is for you. Because for others of us, going home is a dread. The travail, the rejection, whatever you want to call it, that you feel when you go home is temporary. I'm going to back that up and say it again. The rejection, the travail, the pain, the anguish that you feel when you go home, whatever you want to call it, is temporary. The situation that you find yourself in will not last always. So, here is how you overcome nothing being the same. You have to adjust. Because one thing that we don't realize is that the environment is not going to change. the attitudes of people, because what you cannot do, here's another tip for free, is you cannot control the irritations, personalities, and responses of other folks. You can't control how they respond to you, how they act toward you. You can only control how you respond. What you have to do is adjust. You got to adapt to the things around you as it is now. Part of being able to adjust is seeing the new playing field. The rules that you had in high school when you were younger, when you were doing things, they don't apply anymore. Why? Because at this point in your life, you should not be the same person that you were in high school. You should not be the same person that you were when you were at home the first time. If you have not grown at all, you need to put a check on your maturity. And in order to do this, are you ready? You're going to have to get over your fear of change. Now, I know for some of us that don't seem like it's a lot. But for others of us, change, and especially to us, makes us go through an entire identity crisis. We have no clue who we are because we don't like the change, and we fight it for so long. We fight it for so long because I don't want nothing to change. I want to be the same. I want to have my same room. I want to go back, and I want everything to be the same. I want everything else to freeze, but life goes on when you step away. When you leave the house, things does not step, and the pause button is not pressed. People grow up. People mature. The city expands. The city does things. The schools don't look the same. Rules change. Things are different now. You got to adjust to your new environment. In order to achieve your goals and dreams in the first place, you can't be the same person you are now forever. The next thing you have to do, and I'm almost done, the next thing you have to do is remember that this situation is not a forever thing. Most of the problems that we face in our life, most of the things that we cannot get over is because we look at the situation as a lasting situation. I promise you, the pain and the anguish that you feel right now, it will not last forever. The Bible says for everything there is a season and a time. That's Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter. There is a season and a time, a place for everything. Meaning that it must begin. It has to happen. Congratulations, you're growing up. That means you are in a fresh new stage of maturity and a fresh new place in your life, but that means it's got to happen. I know that breaks your heart and that doesn't seem really, really, really amazing, but it's got to happen. I'm sorry. It has to, because it's a factor in a stage in life. You've got to change. But there is an end to it. It does not last forever. It does not stay forever. This season in your life will come and it will go. But while it is here, you've got to learn how to manage it properly. Living in the moment for some of us can seem daunting because if you're like me, you like living in the future, right? You like living in what could be and what's going to be and what can happen. But instead, we have to be able to live where we are now. Congratulations. Not only because you've completed another school year. Thank God for that. Hallelujah. No assignments for 3 months. But congratulations, you've grown up. Congratulations. You have successfully made it to the new stage in your life called the in-between. And in the in-between, you can be caught in what in between, what you have already done and what you're yet to do. And this is one of the stages of development. This is one of the stages of development. Everyone is not going to receive you because not everyone understands. Not everyone is your responsibility to cater to either. Because sometimes if you're like me and you just want to help everybody, the same people, if they're not going to do it for you, Glory to the Son of Man. If they're not going to do it for you, then you don't need to do it for them. And you can say that with a smile and real nice, but if they're not going to treat you like you are treating them, then they're not the one for you. All right? The Bible says weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning.